Give YouTube a second. Awesome, and we're connected. So hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to this wonderful presentation. We're excited to hear a little bit more about the Right Fit program from Paul and what it entails. Just so everyone is aware, in the Zoom meeting, this is being recorded and streamed to Facebook and YouTube. So if you are not comfortable having your face shown, you can turn off your camera during this presentation. As well as if you want to ask a question but aren't comfortable having your voice out, you can type it in the chat and we will answer it from there. With that, I'll hand it off to Paul to tell us a little bit more.
Great. Angela, thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Paul Gauthier. I'm the Executive Director at the Individualized Funding Resource Center, and I'm so excited to talk about the Right Fit program. We have come such a far way with this program, and in fact, so far that even our title here should be saying the Right Fit program, as we are no longer a project, we are a full program, which we're really excited about. So let's go ahead and change the slide. All right, so today I'm going to talk about the accessibility housing crisis, what we talk about in regards to the invisible homelessness, the Right Fit program as an overall view of the program, the eligibility criteria. We're going to talk about some of the faces of people that we supported on the program. And we're going to talk about our peer support, navigation, our approach. And we're going to talk about home support and equipment. We're going to talk about, and we're going to be talking about how we work with housing providers, the amazing checklist that we've developed, and how you can connect with the Right Fit. So today I'm really hoping that you'll be able to get some good information about kind of where we started and where we're at. And if you're somebody that's in need to access a new home or looking for something in regards to accessibility, please do reach out to the Right Fit. So, all right, here we go. So the Right Fit is a multi-partner service to address really the housing crisis in British Columbia. And we're looking at matching affordable, accessible homes and independent living supports with people who need them in Metro Vancouver. So we've started off in the metro area of Vancouver, but we are looking to expand outward. Go ahead, Hillary. If you turn the slide, Hillary. Thank you. So the crisis, we've been going through a housing crisis for a long time. But in 2014, the Persons with Disability Advisory Committee of the City of Vancouver declared there was a crisis in affordable wheelchair accessible housing, and pulled together a group of individuals that said, look, what are we going to do about this? There was more wheelchair users wanting to live independently in the community, and wanted to really be able to be free from having to live with their parents or having to live in a care facility. The common denominator really, though, was, accessibility and the issues of being able to really know what was, the accessibility features of different homes. Go ahead, Hillary. You can change this. Thank you. So in regards to the data, so in 2020, there was 606 applicants requesting accessible housing through BC Housing, and over half of those were people living either in Vancouver or Surrey. And as we all know, people with disabilities do live in very low income, and 56% of those had household incomes below $20,000 in Vancouver, right? So imagining trying to be able to access accessible, affordable housing in the Vancouver area. The annual turnover was reported that there was only 30 to 45 units listed through BC Housing a year, right? I mean, it's just not enough housing turnover to be able to deal with the demand. And really the demand is underestimated. You know, that 606 are just people that report that they require accessible units. The very low ratio of vacancies and turnovers really was the crisis. Thank you, Hillary. So the real key challenge really was and has been around the accessibility of the accessible and the affordable side of it, and that people just cannot afford the accessible units that were out there. There was lots of discussion around the length of time it took for people to get access to equipment and devices. You know, things like just getting a track ceiling lift to be able to go from your bed to from your wheelchair to your bed, and then access to supports in your home, such as home support. And all of these things take time. And so it all had to actually happen at a very specific timing to make it work for people. You know, the high demand means a vacancy is often gone before supports are in place. You know, to get equipment would take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, which means that the person couldn't actually move into their unit for that period of time. Can you back up for a second? Okay, and then there was just, as you know, there's not a real centralized inventory of accessible units, and the standards for listing accessibility features were really all over the place, right? Everybody has a different understanding of accessibility. Go ahead, Hillary. So social housing providers may have additional eligibility criteria as well. And there we're talking about that, you know, maybe that, you know, that you have to maybe not have pets, for example, or maybe it's only a home, a building that's available if you have children. You know, so otherwise, you know, there's some good units, but they weren't getting filled because of these different eligibilities. Low portability of matching as well, you know, just being able to really make sure that someone with a disability that required a roll-in shower was actually going to be able to utilize that unit. Where in many cases there was units that were becoming available, but because service providers couldn't find someone, as you know, we're putting people that are able-bodied into those units. So the market, when it was becoming, you know, when there were units available, we need to make sure that that housing stock goes to where it needs to go, and that's to people who really require the different features. Go ahead, Hillary. There's a little lag and stuff between our slides. Sorry about that. You know, many people have reported the fact that they would wait maybe 4 to 5 years before their name may even appear on the BC Housing Registry, or other registries for that matter. Many individuals with disabilities ended up in inaccessible units, really falling in the area of homelessness. And I think that people don't see, you know, a lot of people don't see people with disabilities as homeless. But if you're not able to access your bathroom, if you're not able to have a shower, you know, when you look at the Canadian definition of homelessness, you know, if you're not in a stable, safe, permanent, and appropriate housing, you are on all intensive purposes, homeless. You know, and I think that, you know, the other major thing is that, you know, people that end up going through GF Strong, coming out of GF Strong, and they don't have an accessible home to go to, are then forced into care facilities. And there is an incredible amount of people, young people with disabilities, that are in care facilities right now, due to the fact that there is just not enough wheelchair accessible units available. Thank you, Hillary. So the right fit really was in response to the crisis. And what we wanted to do was better utilize the existing supply, ensuring that every wheelchair accessible unit goes to someone who really needs it. The inventory, we need to make sure what it is, what are the features, how accessible is a particular unit. And we need to make sure that we also look at increasing the housing affordability. And that is the area that I would say is one of the biggest challenges, is being able to afford to be able to live in the Vancouver area, in the full metro area, and then really address the supply gap. Thank you, Hillary. So the right fit is a multi-partner program that we talked about, and it's led by the Disability Alliance BC. And as everyone knows, the Disability Alliance has been very, very involved in the province of British Columbia, being a real voice for people with disabilities. They manage the Right Fit program, and they conduct the outreach to housing providers and program communication activities. We have Isabel Grock, who's just an amazing communicator and handles all of our websites and makes sure that communication is going through. And we have an amazing steering committee I'm going to talk about in a moment. And she really is able to kind of keep on top of moving our programs forward. The Individualized Funding Resource Center was developed really to help support individuals that wanted access to individualized funding. And we provide supports, services, and resources around individualized funding, both for the CSIL program and CLBC. And we're responsible for the peer-led navigation of the Right Fit. And what we're doing is we're really promoting and really working on the placement and the provisions of disability supports. Thank you, Hillary. So our partners at our steering committee level, it really has an amazing leadership with real experience. And we have key people at the table that really helps us be able to keep our mission going. So the members that we have is BC Housing. They've been with us from the very beginning. The Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, been playing a real critical role in working together around equipment and devices, and so much more. Vancouver Coastal Health and Fraser Health, City of Vancouver, the Spinal Cord Injury BC, and the Vancouver Resource Society. Our steering committee is really moved forward and been funded now in the Lower Mainland by the Reaching Home Homeless Initiative, which is a federal government fund around homelessness. The City of Vancouver's Renters Office has been supporting us financially, and also BC Housing. So between 2017 and 2020, we started off as a pilot project. And and what we were trying to do here was test a new way of doing this, doing it as a basis as a service model, where really we were connecting wheelchair users with accessible, affordable housing. When we first began, we were working with a very narrow eligibility. We've opened that eligibility up completely, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. We developed an assessment tool that's really raised public awareness around what accessibility really means. And we do work directly with applicants and housing providers to learn what were the systemic barriers to accessible housing. So in 2020, 2022, the Right Fit Steering Committee received funding to continue this work, and that's when we became the full program. So the approach, again, we help providers fill their accessible units with the right tenant. And that's why we call it the Right Fit. for the unit. And we help people that use wheelchairs access the right home for them. And we streamline the access to home support and equipment. And, and which is, again, such a key. The right fit navigators work directly with applicants and support tenants during the move-in process. So it's a full component, and I'm going to talk more about that peer-on-peer support. Applicants must be, so this is our eligibility. Applicants must be a full-time power or manual wheelchair user, living in the Vancouver coastal or Fraser Health area. The program focus right now is the Metro Vancouver area, but we're definitely looking to expand to other regions. It's a must. It's a crisis throughout this whole province. There is no age restrictions. And when we first began, people had to be on PWD, but that is not an eligibility at this point anymore. So we recognize that, there's wheelchair users that can't afford wheelchair accessible units, and we need to be able to partner up and work together with all wheelchair users to find the appropriate housing. So here's kind of our numbers to date. So we've since 2017 have successfully matched 55 individuals. When we first began, we thought we would never get past 10. It was such a slow go at the very beginning. The first year or two was very challenging. And that's when we really realized the need to really do further outreach to our housing providers and provide more support for the housing providers, which is really where our communication strategy has really come in. So 55 successful housing matches to date, we're very proud of. 24 individuals with disabilities for a single tenancy, and 31 families with at least one person with a disability. So 58 people with disabilities and 49 supporting individuals or families. So we're over 100, helped over 100 people access new homes. We have 4 more that are being matched this month alone, that are in the process being matched. And, as we all know, one of the biggest things we need to continue to work on is around the rental supplements. The Right Fit program ended up getting access to 10 rental supplements, where the funds can come directly to the individual to then go out into the market to rent, to be able to rent. And, I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with our partners, to work with government, to looking at broadening this out, because the more that we can have on the rental supplements is going to help this situation so much more. So we have a current caseload of 104 people that are currently looking for housing. And, the affordability challenge continues to be in place for more people. That's the reality of where we're at. So I want to introduce you to Jana. Jana is an individual that we've been able to assist. Some people know her as well. She's just an amazing mom, and someone that came and was really not in an accessible unit. Can you turn the slide, please? Here you can see the place that she was living was a real challenge. This was a kitchen that she wasn't able to access. Not being able to get underneath the counters. You could change the slide there, please. Not being able to reach up top to be able to pull things off the shelves. You can see even just in the here was is devastating for someone. Pulling out a plate or something that could be on top of it, safety wise, just not very well set up for someone with a disability. So she could pull that out and that could land right on top of her, depending on what's on top. Just having access to be able to get down the corridor or getting into her child's bedroom or was something that she wasn't able to do. As you can see, she would need assistance to get into this room just because the room wasn't wide, the door wasn't wide enough. And then the struggle where unfortunately, most of the accessible units come with the bathtub. And here's a very narrow bathtub. And, for her, it was a real challenge to be able to transfer from her chair onto the bath bench. And again, safety wise, just a real challenge to be able to have a proper shower. And it was really sad because there was a nice little patio, but as you can see, and it's a typical problem with places where there's a 6-inch lip in front so that you can't get out to the patio. So she wasn't able to, with her child being out there playing, she depended on someone else to do that for her. And then when you look at this next picture, this was the one accessible space that she did have, was the living room. And really it was pretty small, but she did, she was able to interact and be with her beautiful, beautiful child. If you turn. So, Will, I'm really, really happy to introduce you to Will. And, Will is someone that has really gone through a lot in his life. And when he came to the right fit, he was really struggling, and Will was dealing with real homelessness. And I'd like to show you a video of Will. It's a small clip of a video. We have a full version that will be coming out that we'll be telling his full story. But I just wanted to show you this a brief video, if I could, Hillary, please.
I have kinese dysplasia syndrome. It's a bone deteriorating condition, and I had to start using a wheelchair from the time I was 12. I started an internet advertising company when I was about 25, and I just worked hard at that and had enough money to just retire. And I had all this money and nothing to do and started using drugs. Over the course of 3 years, I spent all of my savings and ended up on the streets. It was just, that was horrible. A normal person, they can go places to sleep and they can, it's just, they don't have a battery to keep charged all the time, and just being in a wheelchair, it's unsafe as well. I found it harder than other people because I can't get out of my wheelchair to sleep in certain places. And it's just, it was just, so some places are inaccessible. I ended up in a rehabilitation center. So I went to a lot of apartments to try and find a wheelchair accessible place. And there's just they're very rare. And the people listing these places, they think just because they have an elevator to their unit, like there's an elevator in the building, they think that that's wheelchair accessible. But that's not the case. No, the actual unit needs to be big enough to access. You need to be able to turn your wheelchair around. There's not enough wheelchair units in BC, and there's a lot of people that are disabled. So people kind of have, a lot of people compromise, I think, probably, and go with units that are sort of accessible or not really accessible, But if you plug in with the right organizations, like the Right Fit Project, and you keep a good life, and keep positive, and just hopefully something will come up for you,
And what's exciting for Will is that we did end up finding an accessible place for Will. And, for him, having a fully accessible place has allowed him to refocus his life again, and being access to the appropriate supports that he required. It's just a really great story. And it just, I can't wait for him to get really back up on his feet to really move forward and get back into the passions that he had before. I want to talk a little bit about the peer-to-peer navigation model, and I think it's one of our real key elements. you see, this is Dalton in the photo talking with one of our clients. And, Dalton comes with personal lived experience with his mom. And his mom has had a disability all of her life, and finding housing was a real challenge. And when Dalton came to us and started working with us at IFRC, when he knew about the Right Fit program, he was like, I want to be part of this, because he was through it. He was going through it, and his mom was dealing with the challenges of finding an accessible unit. And to date, he has been involved with most of the clients that have been matched. So it is quite rewarding, and he tells me this all the time. And he sees his family situation every time, and that ability to be able to connect with someone, right? That one-on-one support and building trust. I know that when I communicate with individuals with disabilities about what they're going through and stuff, being able to speak with someone that kind of gets it already, I think really helps on the peer side. And so what the navigators do is they really assist the individuals in identifying where they want to live, because sometimes when somebody comes, they're very narrow in regards to what they're thinking about. And when you're too narrow in regards to when you're too narrow in regards to what you're looking for, ends up sometimes just not being able to pull options available, because there's just not much available. So if you're only willing to be downtown or only to a particular area, so we explore it, and we explore what are the pros and cons, and really thinking through, is there another area? Would SkyTrain be a possibility? Is there bus transportation to get to a particular place? But at the same time, really looking at what are your social networks and understanding that too. Because if your social network is a particular area of town and stuff, then that's important to you. And you need to be able to kind of weigh the pros and cons. And that is something our navigators work with an individual on, to really look at what is essential for you in regards to finding a particular place. Going through the process of even filling out application forms, BC Housing application form, they've kept it as streamlined as possible, but just knowing where to find the BC Housing application and helping them fill that out is something that our navigators do as well. Reviewing accessible units and matching them. So our navigators quite often will look at those places. We have a woman named Jackie who's just incredible, and she is out there doing matches, and we'll talk a little about looking at housing and stuff. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But what's neat is that Dalton and the navigators have even gone as far as going to some of the interviews, with an individual. Obviously, we can't do it for everyone, but we definitely try when somebody says, I'm feeling nervous about going to the interview. And sometimes being able to just put your best foot forward, sometimes having a friendly face that you've started to get to know can kind of remind you of some key points that he already knows about you, and to why you're going to be a great neighbor to someone. And Dalton really is that kind of person who, and the rest of our navigators around, being able to communicate and just talk about, reminding you that you enjoy, gardening, or you enjoy different components. Because if you have an opportunity to be, in a co-op or those kinds of things, that getting, those aspects of the co-op is so important to get involved in. Go ahead there, Hillary. Then it's home supports, and let's talk about home supports very briefly. Many people know me through home support, and there's a traditional home support, and it works for some, but not for all. Where I would say the choices and supports for independent living, the CSIL program, can work for all. And that is something that I truly believe in. If you yourself can't access the CSIL program on your own, you can have a family member, you can have a friend to help you with this. But One of the things the right fit does is just make sure that when you're transitioning, if you're coming out of a care facility, or if you're coming from living from your family, or you're just moving from an inaccessible home to a more accessible home, we help to make sure that we support you during that transition, and work with the health authorities. And the health authorities are doing a really good job on trying to work together with the right fit to move this along. And then there's the equipment side. And earlier I talked about just a track ceiling lift. Like I said, it could take 3 to 6 months. If you're somebody on PWD, it takes a significant amount of time. We worked with the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction to come up with a fast track process, which leaves a lot of the paperwork and stuff for people to be working on behind the scenes, and really just get working directly on what do you need to be able to secure that unit. So things like the ceiling track lift, maybe it's an electric bed, grab bars, commode chairs, things like that. We don't have a fast track process at this time for like electric wheelchairs or manual chairs and things. But when it comes to the fact that things that you need to have set up in your home to be able to access that unit faster, the right fit is able to help support you in doing that. And again, this is for people that are on PWD. And you can see here, Will is having a challenge with his door. And again, it's creating partnerships out there. Those that know Technology for Living, what an amazing organization. They have a door opener program, and we connected Will with that organization, and he was able to get a door opener, which then he doesn't have to struggle to do this. And so if you're someone that needs a door opener, feel free to, Technology for Living has a great program on this. Working together, it is critical. If you are someone with a disability that is looking for an accessible, affordable home, or just an accessible home, let us know as early as you can. Don't wait. If you're thinking about it, maybe it's something that you're thinking about doing in a year or two. It does take time. The right fit isn't, unfortunately, a place where you're going to necessarily be moved up a list or anything like that. But what we do is really do work with you to connect. So when a unit does become available, that we're able to look through who fits a unit that would fit that place so well. We do facilitate the process with all of our partners, from health authorities, the Ministry of Social Development, and BC Housing as well. So, and if you're someone who's had some challenges regarding, if you've got an opportunity to move into a co-op and there's a need for share purchases, we can help facilitate getting access to some funding for share purchases and things, and show you what the process is. And our navigators are excellent at that. Go ahead, Hillary. So talking a little bit more about, working with our housing providers. So again, we talked earlier about the inconsistent accessibility standards, and many housing providers think that they have an accessible unit, but in fact, many of them do not. And that's not necessarily their fault. Sometimes it's the contractor that they've hired that end up telling them it is an accessible unit, right? Having a roll-in shower with a step to get in, somebody could say that is a roll-in shower, but it's not. We really do work with the housing providers so that they could have a one-stop place to find wheelchair users. And we utilize a friendly checklist, which really does all of the different measurements. Can you turn the page, Hillary? And we also advertise all the units that become available on our website through the Right Fit website. So please, at the end, I'll make sure that you have the Right Fit website address. But this is just a small example of a part of the checklist is just around the turning radius and understanding the turning radius. A service provider now with the checklist is able to understand why a bathroom may not be wheelchair accessible for some based on someone's wheelchair turning radius. And so it's a full checklist, by the way, where it measures the different areas, like you'll see here, even the countertops. We measure those as well so that people will know if their legs can get underneath to get access to the sink, for example, there, or the stovetop. We do, the door open, the doors as well. We measure doors and the widths of the doors. Because some people do have narrow wheelchairs and may actually be able to fit into some units. So again, it just really depends on what we're talking about when we talk about accessibility. The roll-in shower, what are the different building amenities? Also including parking spaces as well, of course. And are pets allowed? And what is nearby the particular building that is available? And just helping people through with the building contracts as well, and other building contacts as well. Go ahead and turn, yeah. So one of the things that, the checklist does is really be able to keep the individual informed about what they're looking at before they go to the unit. So we're not wasting our time. For a lot of us, just getting to a particular unit is so challenging, right? It's not easy just to quickly swing by and see if it's accessible or not. But if we can take photos and be able to take pictures for you, so you've got an idea already, we provide that information to our clients. Go ahead, Hillary. So just a couple of examples. I won't spend too long on these, but here's an example of an accessible shower. At the bottom, you'll see that there's a little lip there, but actually that's a flip down, where when you run over it, it kind of flops down. So it keeps the water inside, but you can actually run your chair right underneath. Go ahead with the next one. And of course, the accessible roll-in shower, right? Yes, so we'll turn, so not accessible, of course. So again, the people, again, some housing people just don't know that that's not accessible. Go ahead, Hillary. And here's some really good examples of an accessible kitchen, having the oven doors open to the side instead of down in front of you, the roll-in space under the countertop. Go ahead, Hillary. And of course, the non-accessible kitchen, which you can't access. And again, most of us know this kind of stuff, so that's why I'm not spending too much time. Go ahead, Hillary. And again, the sad aspect of patios, I just get so upset. I had to show the photo again one more time, just frustrates me all the heck. Why we have so many accessible units that have the step out onto the patio. And then, we just know bathtubs don't work for everyone, where a roll-in shower will work for everyone. People may want bathtubs, by the way, and those that can handle the bathtubs, fantastic. And there's many people that require a bathtub. Again, it just needs options out there. But, I think most people would agree, if you don't know which way to go between a bathtub and a roll-in shower, go with the roll-in shower, because that's the majority of people would be able to access. And I think most of the people here today would agree with that. So here's some of our contact information. So the website is there, the rightfitbc.org. Please take a look at it. We're really excited. It's a new website of ours. A lot of good information. More and more postings are going to come up as they are available. We have a newsletter. Just sign up to the newsletter and you'll get a newsletter. I think we do it about quarterly. We got our social media side of things from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Poor Isabel is busy with her communications and stuff, for sure. And then here are some of the contacts. Next page will be on the how to contact me and also Dalton, and then Isabel, as well. So again, if you're going to look at connecting with the right fit because you yourself are interested, sending an email to dalton@ifrcsociety.org. You can stop sharing, Hillary, and then we'll just kind of come back onto the mainframe here. And I just want to say that I mean, Dalton and the team are open to just generally a communication in a chat, right? So if you're just wanting to explore and want to understand it a bit more, feel free to make that connection with Dalton, and he'll be very happy to connect with you. So, Angela, I unbelievably, we hit exactly the timeline you told me about. Woohoo! And which will leave us open to some questions if anyone has any questions. And sorry, Angela, I should leave it to you to facilitate that part. Sorry.
You're doing good. You're doing my job, making my life real easy.
Thanks, Angela.
Well, thank you, Paul, for a wonderful presentation, and for Hillary for clicking through the slides. Yeah, and we'll open up to questions. I don't know if anyone wants to unmute themselves, or if you would like to prefer to type to the chat, and then I can convey that to Paul. We have some time to do so.
And it's great to see some familiar faces. So it's great.
It's Mike Stiles. I'm in the Okanagan of Suyas, and I absolutely agree. It's a province-wide issue, and it would be great if it was absolutely province-wide. So
yeah, Mike, I hear you, and the Okanagan needs this desperately. I get calls quite regularly, and the good news, Mike, is that we are truly looking at this now, and a lot of it is resources, right? Right now we get grant funding for this program, and it's my hope that we can see this as a provincial program, and we're working right now to hopefully get another region going as well. But when we just depend on grant funding and stuff, we've got to figure out a way how to make this a provincial program where government is responsible for it to carry on and use the structure and the experience and the knowledge that has been gained from this. And I believe it's going to happen one of these days, Mike, and hopefully not too long, because it needs to happen soon, I'm sure, Mike.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you for your comment, Mike.
And then Kim has her hand raised. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi there, it's Kim Valchek-Egger. Hi, Mike. For some reason, you're hiding on us, but anyways, I think Mike knows me. I used to work on Heinetash, and a lot of you, I've seen you guys around. I worked for SCI BC back in the 90s and the early 2000s, and people like Mike and others, people who, especially who were into BC wheelchair sports, would remember a place called Paralodge at Kingsway and Knight. 3655 Clark Drive in Vancouver. At first, it was a transition place for people who were moving further out of the lower mainland, say leaving GS Strong, the rehab center, or something like that, or sort of very temporary shelter for other reasons. Some of it was BC wheelchair sports and other reasons. We were way ahead of the curve back then. When we tore it down, we created an integrated in every way, shape, and form that you can, a 3-story building, financially integrated, able-bodied people with disabilities. At that time, there were 3 units funded for transitional housing. I'm not sure if they still are there. I'm quite sure WorkSafe B is still paying for one. But I really like that idea. And Paul, what I wanted to say moreover is that you guys did a great job planning with care, because when we planned that, we knew that things were going to change in the future. Nobody knows for sure what's going to happen in the future, but when we look at the demographics right now, everyone knows that's the aging boomers, and they can be our best friends too, by the way. They can help us with a lot of lobbying and advocating for similar interests, but on the other hand, they also compete too. And when it comes to healthcare and home support, I'm noticing in particular that the hours are just getting less and less all the time. So when we planned that building, there were we also planned for high quads. So we or people who have a much higher level injury, and there's some here who needed a lift to get into the tub. So we made a space underneath so you could get your lift in a bathtub, and we of course had wheel-in showers and quite a variety. We engaged with consumers and all kinds of people. But most importantly, I'd say the people providing the equipment and home support. So what we did there was we also created a kitchen, and I know people don't like this idea, but SCIBC was also involved in managing Creekview and Noble House, and some of you are familiar with those places where people share some of the hours and care. And Paul, you have some great places too. So does Vancouver VRS, right? They have some great places where there's more sharing going on of care, because not all, if we look in the future, we're going to need a lot more of these too, because not everyone needs help all the time, but they might need a little bit of help in the middle of the night or during the day. So I also think shared care is a really important aspect, or at least the option to do that. And I know you're doing some of that, the one in North Van in particular that we saw recently. So yeah, I just wanted to point out the care aspect as well, because that's so important. And I'm just seeing in the future, maybe some of us will be more wanting to share care to make it work. So thanks again, just applauding you for including all the partners. And as a last comment, if you would like to send us information at South Fraser Active Living, we will share it. And I know that the Disability Alliance has their own newsletter, but SCIBC also has a Spin magazine. So if you can do a write-up for them, that would reach a wide audience too.
Kim, such fantastic information as usual. I mean, Kim, you're so connected and so knowledgeable, and you've always kept yourself knowledge and what's going on. And so I thank you. So in regards to Spin, I'm going to take you up on that, of course, and we'll make sure that we get something written up for the Spin. I think that's great. In regards to transition units, we need to continue to have more transition units available for people so they don't have to opt into a care facility because there's nowhere else to go. So more transition units need to happen. We also work closely with Health and Home Care, who has 2 transition units available for a 6-month period of time called St. George's Place, which is a great resource. And people that come out of GF Strong become a priority to go there instead of having to go into a facility. And they're working right now on some transition units, potentially being in North Vancouver over the next year or 2 as well. And more social housing to be developed in the North Shore and those things too. And I just want to, Kim, since you mentioned the North Shore, the idea of the share care and doing it in a way that allows people with disabilities to keep control of who's going to work for them and who's not. And, it's a partnership between Individualized Funding Resource Center and Vancouver Resource Society, and where in both the 2 buildings, there's 5 units that are fully accessible. And there's a share care night for the CSIL program. So everybody chips in, an hour and a half a day, and they get their nighttime support. And then they use their CSIL funding for the daytime support. It's a great model because people then have control of who's going to be there at night, and they work as a team with that as well. So, it's about sharing information. And I thank Angela so much for this, because it's all about, right, making sure power, we always say power is knowledge, right? And our information is power, really, is what I meant to say. And this kind of event is so important. So thank you.
And
hi, Maureen.
Hi, Paul, and everyone else. May I thank you for a very informative presentation. And as usual, great information. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure more of the people within our organization, the participants, members, are aware of this the right fit. It's a wonderful service, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for this presentation.
Thank you so much, Maureen. That's so appreciated.
And I have another Zoom, so I'm going to check out, but I just wanted to get that in. Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions on the floor? No, we're good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for speaking to us about the Right Fit program and how everyone can get involved. It was extremely informative, especially for me, who's never really heard of this, at least not in depth. So very, very fascinating to learn more.
Thank you, Angela. And thanks again to you and ConnecTogether and the rest of your team.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for coming to this presentation, whether you're in the live Zoom meeting, watching the live streams, or watching the recordings. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.